Hello, my name is Salinius Malinius, and welcome to the Artist Talk. Now I will be representing Sharon to name the artists. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Serenius, for that beautiful introduction. I'm so happy to be standing here with you today. Now, I understand that your artist is Cynthia Heise, and she was not able to make it here today. Could you tell us a little bit about your origin story?
Well, I came from before the Ice Age, a land of prehistoric plants everywhere and beauty throughout the lands.
Oh, excellent. Well, that is great to hear, Serenius. And I see you're just full of rainbows and pearls and beautiful things. I mean, this must have taken forever to put together. How long?
Yes. Yes, I love my fashion, and I love my pearls, and I love my pink and orange egg.
Excellent. It is a beautiful pink and orange egg. How long do you suppose it took the artist to create you?
I don't really remember because she never told me, but I'm guessing a month or so. But in my time, it would be a millennia.
Oh, a millennia. Amazing. Okay, well, I really appreciate the introduction, and let's get going with some other artist talk, shall we?
Yes, we should. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay, you're gonna put that on.
Sure. There we go.
Hi, everybody. I've never been to an artist talk here, and it's so good to see so many people. My goodness, there's so many people interested in art. Or artists, I imagine most of you are. This is taken from a idea of Mobius strip. In the beginning was the end, and they're at world without end, as the doxology goes, if you're Christian, and if you're a scientist, well, they found another big bang in back of that's earlier than the big bang that they figured there was. So maybe there's just life is a series of big bangs. So when I got this assignment, I love cave assignments. That I suddenly, at that same time, my grandson, who I am saying he's a collaborator on this, had found a box of 800 negatives I had never seen before in my life, that in a suitcase, and they were from our family, and there were people who were holding me, who I thought hated me, and all kinds of stories of each one. Anyway, so these are from blow-ups from the photographs that he took, and I blew them up into engineered prints because I wanted it to simulate pointillism, or points. So it has a ghostly feeling, a kind of misty feeling, and if they were like really good prints, it wouldn't have, and they only cost $9, and if they wouldn't have that quality to them of being worn and battled, and so I would call this children of war. That they're personal wars, they're actual wars, there are continuing wars throughout the world, and there's familial wars where things continue to be controversy in the family, and the way you're brought up sometimes. So this is me when I was 30, and my sister just got married, and this is her wedding reception. And in the corner of the photograph, now this photograph was just snatched out of an album. It was a snapshot, no artifice, just innocent. There was no composition, or we're taking a picture, and I love those. So in the corner was my son making a funny face. So in the theme of Mobius strip, of coming around again, I have this family coming around again. It's just like every family does that. Everything in life does that. And we have our sculpture here from the prehistoric era, and here it is back again here, you see. So everything, you meet yourself coming around. I love making a Mobius strip, and you can see yourself passing yourself. So you always will come around again. This is my grandson who helped me, holding his father. And I'm holding my sister. We're upside down because you are upside down on a Mobius strip. And this is my sister's husband, my grandmother. And so I drew this through memory. My background is of an interdisciplinary artist. And that is an artist who works in the intricacies between the arts. It's not a merging of the arts. It's not multimedia, although it looks like that. That it's two arts put together, and what comes up between the two is the art. For example, like two parents have a child. That child is not the parent, but it is of the parent. And that's what interdisciplinary art is. And so all of my life, I started out with combining photography and making marks. My first art show was on the walls of my house where I lived. I was 5 years old. It was the old Crayola that you can't wash off. And, and it was bombers bombing, with bombs coming out of the bombers. And I knew that if I drew that, it would stop World War II. And you know what? It did. It took a while, but I was just a kid, and so the power of art began for me then, and then when I was 8 years old, I bought, with my allowance, I bought a baby brownie, and I became Dorothea Lange, and I took pictures that weren't relatives, and my mother said, "Why don't you take pictures with relatives in them?" And I thought, well, Margaret Burke White took pictures of the Hoover Dam, and that's what I wanted to do. And the reason I knew this is my father got Life magazine, and that was sent every week. I memorized those. There's no TV, so I memorized those photographs. Yeah. Okay, I have 1 minute more. Okay. So I was an inter-artist in the beginning, and I'm still one, and I combine video, everything like that. So thank you very much. Thank you for letting me know. I should have known it was 5 minutes. Thank you. Oh, I wanted to state that my website and everything is in these books. You could help yourself to, these books that I made.
Okay, hello. I am just shocked at how many people came. I was like, there'd probably be like 5 people. It's not going to be anything, but I'm kind of scared. I'm Wendy Davis. I have a business called Wendy Davis Paintings. Go there. I just made a new website, and it's really nice. So, wendydavispaintings.com. This is the birth of Proteus. And how I went about doing this guy was basically, I always watch for the open shows at the cave because, you get to be in them. And I wanted to paint him prior to this show. So how I come about getting, in a case like this where I'm trying to paint for a subject, this is kind of a narrative figurative piece, is I have tons of images on my computer that are either images I've taken or I've gotten from royalty-free sites, and they're all in different categories, and I can sort through those and see what I like. Well, this fellow was a dancer, and he wasn't in that environment at all, and I cropped him out and got another image of the water and put them together and toned it blue it's all in Photoshop, and kind of adjusted everything, put the bubbles in, got all that. And I work from that. So I find, I make the image to paint from because, painting from your memory is like really hard. I need to look at something. And so this was the guy I came up with. And I thought, well, I have to find a story to make it fit. So I'm Googling, and I thought, guy who comes out of the water, and I came up with Proteus, who is the Greek god Zeus' son, and he, his name was from Protos, which means first, and so anyway, he would come up out of the water and lay with the seals on the shore, and his only fault was he could not lie. So if you could catch him, it was very hard to catch because he'd go back in the water. If you could catch him, he would have to tell you the truth of he knew everything because he was a god's son. So anyway, that was my story and why he's there. So basically, that's kind of how what my process works for subject matter on a thing like that. Any questions? Oh, me? Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure I like truth too much. I like good fantasies. So anyway, that's my guy. You're welcome.
I'm Allan Oliver, and this is my painting, which is called Light is Faster Than Sound. And I was going to say in the beginning that I really appreciate the cave's pursuit of these very interesting shows, these interesting group shows that have a concept attached to them. I know that when I was chair of the Arts Commission of the church I go to in Portland, that we would occasionally come up with theme shows, and the artists complained. They didn't like to create according to a theme. We all want to be spontaneous and do what we want. But I really appreciated this particular concept because I thought, so many of the things that we create have mysterious kinds of beginnings. And certainly when we start looking at a blank canvas or some other material medium that we're working in, that we don't know exactly what it is that we're going to create. And so I thought about, this painting in terms of the concept, and this is the statement that I came up with that I sent to the submission. So we see the lightning and then hear the thunder. Our eyes are dazzled by the fireworks and then we hear the bang. In this painting, the pressure builds in the earth, the volcano erupts with a plume, and then we hear the explosion, or imagine it. The visual is always first in our perception because the speed of light is faster than the speed of sound. It's the law. As a visual artist, I count on the power of the visual, the combination of colors, shapes, and images to produce an impact on the viewer. That's the bang. And I think that we're all somehow looking for establishing that kind of a bang electric connection between ourselves and the viewer when we do our art. And I wanted to say something about my process in creating a piece like this. This canvas, which is 6 feet tall and 2 feet wide, is flat on my work surface. And I start by applying my base colors, which are this yellow, green, and the black, and a couple colors of white. And then from there, I add the accent colors through various kinds of tools that I use that distribute the colors in interesting ways. And this medium of art is known variously, but as acrylic pouring. I prefer the term liquid art because I think that there are ways to uh, really put your own take into the thing rather than have it all accidental, which is sort of the sense that we have a lot of times about acrylic pouring. But over the course of the pandemic, when I decided it was a good idea to become a age challenged abstract artist, that I've been able to establish a lot more control in what I do, and this is one of the uh, versions that I feel that I really was able to do exactly what I wanted to do. So that's my story. Thank you.
This is my little Zunu. Zunum is the word for hummingbird in an ancient indigenous Mexican languages. Okay, speak louder. Okay, I'm usually toned down. This little guy came out by himself, and that I do a lot of my work is like that. I don't know what's gonna happen. If I go with an idea, the idea gets lost in the painting somewhere, and I'm doing a little more with acrylic because it's like my thoughts. I can paint on top of my thoughts, on top of my, and watercolor. It's kind of hard to do that. And this little guy started with. I was just doing wet on wet, and I thought, oh, those kind of look like flowers. And this was a long, long time ago, and I thought, oh, that's kind of pretty. What am I going to do? I don't usually do flowers. Maybe I should go look up some flowers. And I forgot about it. Then we moved, and then it came out. It was one of the things that I was throwing a bunch of stuff out. I said, no, I'm going to work on that. And so I was determined to make flowers, and it was determined not to. And then I found these watercolor bottles that somebody had given to me when I was teaching a lot of kids. And they were really, really bright, intense colors. So I just wet the whole thing down and I threw some colors on it. And then I did start to form some of the flowers with darker blues and brighter blues and stuff, but I was losing my light. And so I said, okay, I gotta add, how do I lighten it back up without throwing it out or, washing it completely out? So I did start adding acrylics to be able to paint on top of. And as I was doing that, all of a sudden this little shape came out. And I said, that's odd. And I left and I came back and it was her. She wanted to be painted. And I'm not a bird artist either. I'm not a naturalist artist, but that's kind of how, and I thought, well, this one is looking like a bird, so it's not going to be like, what is it, or fantasy kind of thing, So I did look at a picture to see how beaks came out, and it sort of come out. That was sort of right. And then it started, I was starting to be happy with her, and I was talking to her, and what else do you want? So I started actually composing the colors more for, there's more design by virtue of color and contrast. And then I said, and then I started wondering why, and I do this with my paintings a lot, why did you want to come out? And then the call came out for beginnings, and I said, well, this is kind of interesting, what is the origin of this? And it's kind of serendipitous because in the past couple of years, when I've gone to Mexico a couple of times, and every time I've come back, come back with a hummingbird. And my son, who lives with us, he really got he wants to have hummingbirds around the house, and I thought, this is really interesting. So I started looking up hummingbirds, and there's legends about hummingbirds all over, from indigenous cultures to, other stories and things. So I go back to my own culture. Where did my people come from? They came from either Maya or Aztec. I don't know. We got lost. And so I started looking at it, and I said, yeah, this is it. This is what the origin is. And in back in the way back when things were being created, there was a little bird, very drab little bird was created, and this little guy, he was just always busy here and there and fast and agile and very quiet. He would go into the, end up in the flowers, and nobody knew he was there or she was there because she was so quiet. But the other birds kind of were fascinated by her because she was so fast, so agile, so everywhere. But they felt sorry for her because she was not very pretty. She was just drab. And one day they somehow she was going to get married, and they said, well, you can't have a wedding without color. And so the birds got together, and they, their little breast feathers that are teeny tiny because they were big, majestic, macaws and all that kind of stuff, the cockatoos and quetzals, and so they took the prettiest little things that they could find on their own bodies, and they gave it to her, and that's how she became a flying jewel. So she's this little jewel that for eons is flying all over the place and doing her thing, and then the Mayans came along, and they were really always kind of surprised to see her too, because all of a sudden she would be there, but if they listened carefully, they could hear the humming of her wings. And that's what zoom means. If you go zoom, it feels good in your mouth too, zoom. And so that's what they named the little bird, which means humming in our language. And so that was kind of like the origin of this little guy. And I think my time's up.
Okay. This is my very first time doing this, so it's going to be rough. I guess I will start in the introductions. My name is Casey Moffett, and I am a multifaceted artist, which basically means I have yet to make up my damn mind, and I'm probably not going to, which is fine. I really enjoy absorbing and using any kind of medium I can, and so I like to dip my toes in all the pools that I can. This painting, however, is acrylic and molding paste and a few other little things. This came to me in a dream, and it was very simple. The very first I woke up the next day, and the first thing I thought was just like, oh, that's pretty, right? Like, that's what I thought. I was like, I want to paint that so I can look at it again. So I thought, how simple, okay. And then I'm halfway through it, or I'm getting into it, and you realize it's not that simple, is it? It never is. So the thing I love about being an artist is the journey that the process of creating takes you on. And I'm sure that other artists can agree that what you learn about yourself while you're creating, while you're painting, people pay thousands of dollars in therapy for the same thing we go up against every single time we're at the easel or the wheel or whatever it is, right? So I know that I face my demons daily when I'm in that studio. And you hear these thoughts and, they're not very nice, or they're telling you it's not very good, or whatever it is. And you have to do the work, you have to breathe, and you have to say, like, no, that's not true. This does not belong here. Like, this is what I'm doing, and I have to believe in it. So I just wanted to take today, the thing that I think is amazing about artists too, is that we choose that, right? So we do that, we do it every day, we go to bed, we wake up the next day, and we go right back in and do it again. So we're either crazy, or we're just like superheroes of the spirit, and it's just amazing. So I wanted to take today to get out of my comfort zone, which is not fun, but I also wanted to just show and express my gratitude for the opportunity and the privilege that it is to be an artist and to be able to make these things and put them out there in the world. And yeah, anyways. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Steve Heise, and I have spent a lot of time in my painting career as a conceptual illustrator and as a portrait painter. And I've always admired artists who can start to paint something without an idea, because, well, certainly as a portrait painter, if you don't have an idea what you're going to end up with, your client's probably not going to be particularly happy. And in conceptual illustration, the idea is almost more important than the final product. You're painting to kind of resolve an issue of writing an article, a book, or something like that. And so I've spent a lot of time doing an awful lot of rendering, figuring out how do you make a nose look closer to the viewer than their ears and so on. How do you paint silks and satins and all of this rendering. And after a while, I kind of got tired of that. And a few years back, I was surfing the internet, and I don't know what it was where I ended up, but I ended up on this photograph. And I stopped to look at this photograph because I really wasn't sure what it was that I was looking at. And I did a little bit of research on this photograph, and it was a photograph that was taken in 1990 by the Voyager spacecraft. And in 1990, Voyager was about to leave our solar system. It had just passed Pluto, and it was just a little bit under 4 billion miles from the Earth. And one of the guys that was on the NASA team was a guy named Carl Sagan, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. And he convinced the people at NASA to have Voyager turn its cameras around and from 4 billion miles away take the last photo of Earth. And in this photograph, which Sagan later on wrote a book, he called this photograph The Pale Blue Dot. And if you haven't ever seen it, if you really want to appreciate the majesty of existence and the insignificance of our place in it, then look up this picture, The Pale Blue Dot. And it got me thinking about looking at the Earth that smaller than the size of a single pixel. And it made me want to read some more of Carl Sagan's writing, which I did. And he has this comment that everything, everywhere, we, the planets, the solar system, the cosmos, everything is made of stardust. We're all star stuff. And so when the idea of doing submitting a painting for a show on In the Beginning, there can't be anything more in the beginning than what we're all actually made of. And so I started doing a series of paintings where I didn't necessarily know what it was that I was going to end up with, which is kind of difficult for me because, like I said, the idea is almost more important than anything else. But I put away my paintbrushes, and I was just wondering if I just started crinkling up cellophane and blotting black on a canvas, if anything would appear. And it was interesting that things did start to appear. Sometimes I had to turn the canvas upside down to find it. But this was a series that I did where this figure just kind of came out of nowhere. And it kind of suggested to me the origin of humanity and these pieces coming together in space. Before I got to this point, I was kind of cheating, and I did a whole series that I called the Boneyard series, where I was actually rendering the bones of different animals, and you could tell what they were, and I was looking at photo references, and I kind of figured out, well, that's not really where I really want to go. So now I'm just kind of, blotting and hoping that something will appear, but I haven't been able to get rid of my love of classical painting and Rembrandt and Venetian coloring. I've gone from about 30 different colors to just using black, purple, and yellow. And this whole painting in acrylic is black, purple, and yellow, and just a mixture of that. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
And just a little background of me as an artist. Years ago, used to show my work, created, took a big long gap, and like Casey said, it's a matter of sanity, mental health, dealing with trauma. I started creating again, and last summer, things exploded for me. I won some amazing awards last summer with my fiber pieces, and that really opened some doors to some fantastic invitations this coming year. I'm really excited about that. My passion is painting. I have been dealt a hand with two very, very rare diseases, so I'm battling both of those, and I get lost in creating those tactilely with paint. But again, it's my fiber that I'm more known for. I'm a Cherokee Nation citizen, and when I hear about, like, in the beginning, I went all the way back. I went back to our creation story. Selu, she's kind of like our Eve. She's our first woman. She was married to Kanadi, who was our first man. The story about her is how we got food. Like in the beginnings, when we had like, we used to not have to hunt for food. We didn't have to worry about seeds. She would just jump up and down and pop the corn out. I'm not even going to try to tell the story. I encourage you to look up traditional storytellers because it's absolutely fantastic. My personal favorite is Robert Lewis, and also Chuji Kingfisher, who reminds me of those stories like when you're having a slumber party and you're trying to like conjure demons and all this. That's Chuji, and he's going to tell you some creepy stories, but they're really fun. And just a cute little fact about storytellers. In our language, they're called gagoga, and it literally translates to liar. So, so when you get, and I've got a book here if you guys are interested in some traditional stories. Like literally, the guys, they're called the Liars Club, the Cherokee's Liars Club, and that's our storytellers, and they embellish, and it's super fun. So, I was hoping to get a video of Robert. Talking about how, because we start from a flat earth, that we're held by the four cardinal directions. We've got the overworld, the underworld, and all these different animals and things involved in like creating our mountains and stories, and the sun and crawfish, water spider. I create a lot with water spider, who brought fire to the people. I take the stories and my dreams and what I've been taught, and I like to recreate those using traditional methods and non-traditional materials. I love doing like the beading and the basket weaving and looming, finger weaving. I do a lot of the traditional arts, and I enjoy passing those on because that's our tradition. We are taught these, and we got to make sure that they don't die. And so I, in turn, teach the youth how to do these things as well. So yeah, I encourage you to, I'm not going to give this story any justice, but the Selu, she's our first woman, and it's a fun story. So any questions? It's kind of a curse in the same light too, because it's fun, and if you narrow down one path, it feels restrictive to me, and I like to have that freedom of, if I want to blow glass, I'm going to go blow glass and bring the story in. So this is just acrylic, yeah. So thanks, yeah. Thanks.
I'm Phil Seder. These are my props. This prop, you can pass this around. It's my medium, one of them. You can do a lot with a piece of welding rod. I will tell you, you can fake like you're a piece of cast bronze, for example. So this is what I usually or originally worked in, is just this material, which is simple welding rod. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon. I was the son of a fairly well-known printmaker and a architect. And I started sculpting very early. I was kind of like teeny tiny prodigy. I was doing shows and stuff, and then I gave it all up and started all these careers doing different things like international development, and then money grubbing high tech executive, and then college professor, and oh God, you break it, you pay. I don't think you can break that. Don't worry. And so I'm on my fourth career, but I carried the art through almost all of it, although sometimes landlords and apartments get really pissed off at you if you're using welding equipment, for example. So I use a lot of welding equipment. I do forging, I do some coppersmithing, more and more woodwork these days, add them all together and do a lot of work, some wall mounted stuff, do these acoustic, beautiful, beautiful acoustic bells, the best in the world, I think. That's my opinion. And this is representative of one of my forms of art. This is Homo primitivo. Homo primitivo was a long lost branch of mankind. In fact, the original branch of mankind in North America, 50,000 years ago, before Cro-Magnon, before Neanderthal, there was Homo primitivo. Started out in Texas, strangely enough, and Homo primitivo has these kind of interesting tendencies. He likes things like automatic weapons. But Homo primitivo was like 50,000 years ago. So like, what do you do if you're 50,000 years ago and you want to like just shoot up the place with automatic weapons? Well, all you can do is carve one out of wood and throw it at something like a spear. So that's what Homo primitivo did, is he'd carve these weapons of mass destruction out of wood and try to use them to off people. He had, you know, IEDs and all these things that he'd use. And he is actually a pretty nasty guy. In fact, he invented barbecue. Homo primitivo would just light the entire forest on fire and just go through the forest floor, pick up anything that was left over, charred pieces of this and that, and eat them. And he called that barbecue, which is why a lot of the Southwest is kind of deforested to this day. There were the primitivas. The primitivas up and left Primitivo because he was kind of a foul guy. He'd roll in drunk every night on this stuff that they brew up, and he'd roll into bed, you know, like grunt a few times and, you know, roll into his animal hide and go to bed. So all the Primitivas grabbed the kids and left, which was kind of put the kibosh on reproduction, but Primitivo didn't really care. He didn't actually notice. He just kept drinking with his buds for another 25,000 years. And then he was such a toxic, destructive kind of thing that the Cro-Magnons and the Neanderthals finally gathered together and decided to off him. Plus saber-toothed tigers who considered him quite delectable. This is all captured in the complete synopsis of Homo Primitivo, which is part of the sculpture, by the way, is the book, which I see is starting to fall apart. There are also several reproductions of that book available in the back of the gallery if you so want to read the entire story. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Sallos. This is my first foray into speaking like this, but it should be interesting. I have been a sculptor forever, as long as I can remember. I graduated from the University of Oregon with Jeanne Svec, and also from the Portland Museum Art School with Manuel Izquierdo. Now it's called the Pacific Northwest College of Art, is how you know it now. But I love sculpture because it's solid. It's something that has physical presence, it's touchable, and those are all qualities that I like. I'm very tactile. The process of sculpture is very meditative because it's slow and laborious, but that's why it's meditative, because you have to have absolute focus and involvement with it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I have worked with many different mediums. I think I started with stone and marble, and what I found with that is that when I hit it, it hit back. And I wasn't fond of that. I moved into wood. I love wood, but at this point I've reached a kind of tree-hugging consciousness that makes me not want to hit wood. So I've moved into clay. I never thought I would really warm up to clay, but it has some character. To start with, it's very organic. I used to spray a piece in the evening to keep it moist because it has a lot of requirements, and cover it in plastic. And one morning I got up and removed the plastic, and there was a sweet little plant growing out of the top of my sculpture. It really struggled with, I really don't want to remove this poor little thing, but it gave me a new respect for the clay. It is very organic. It has attitude. You can't work with it too fast. You can't make it too thick or too thin or too wet or too anything, and it will rebel. It can collapse or break or just plain not cooperate, so that you really can't get it to do what you want it to do. The metaphors that are part of my imagination are basically a boat, tree, fish, and human bodies, especially babies. I like to seek out kind of the innocence that you find in a newborn baby or plant. There's something there that hasn't been contaminated yet with thoughts or feelings or the worldly experience. I enjoy that. So I do a lot of baby sculptures. Also, I like the boat shape. It's kind of a container that we go through life in. Our bodies are containers. A boat is a container. So I kind of tend to make everything start out with a curve at the bottom and kind of grow up like a plant almost. As far as the origins go, I think about origins a lot, actually. I've always been interested in where things start, and I don't mean historically or anything like that, but when I think back, I try to think back to the most original thing. And if we all start from a cell, and in the process of cytokinesis, a cell creates its own polarity, divides itself, and creates something new, like a daughter cell. So that got me to thinking about female and male and their attributes that create new life. So it's kind of a family motif. And I like to think that we went from one cell perhaps in life, and we've developed along to more of the same process of coming together, coming apart, and multiplying. The other piece that I've done is the fish over there on the wall. It's titled Fish Story. It's pretty simple. My other idea that I've kind of a fantasy that I've always had my whole life is that we all came out of the sea somehow, and that there might have been at some point this grand and beautiful mother fish, this just giant fish, and she would produce hundreds of little fry, but there would be one anomaly in the group that wanted out of the water and onto land, and that maybe that was how we began. And that's what that one is all about. When I finish a piece, it's sort of like a little victory over time, because, you know, this is just some strange little thought, some little imagining that becomes solid. And when it does so, it becomes permanent and it won't die. So, any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kevin Drake. I kind of like working on a small scale. I really don't like doing anything very big. But so I'm originally from Vancouver. I grew up here, actually born literally just down the way here from, well, what's now a parking lot, right by the library at the beginning of the Officers Row. But anyways, I had moved away and then moved back down to town here and set up a studio, and where I can actually work on the size that I like working on. I titled this Baroque 1 because I've derived it from a Baroque painting by Rubens. And there's only some pieces in it that I wanted to save that actually came from the actual painting. And originally there were very figural people throughout this whole thing. And in my process, and most of this is done by hand with gloves on and paint. And I'm smearing and pushing and everything all over this thing for hours. Now these large loops that I've got going on, those are straight from the tube of paint that I have. And I wanted to capture Rubens' painting in this due to the fact that it was called Consequences of War. And it's a very violent scene being depicted. And for me to be expressive in this were my loops and everything like that. So, and part of my work, or part of my process is mark making. So in the beginning of any large work like this, my works are tacked directly onto a wall. And I'll stand and stare or sit and stare at the painting or the blank canvas for a period of time until I really feel like I need to engage it. And what my first process doing is, what you can't see much of, and I don't think I have anywhere visual, but I do what's called mark making. And it's nothing necessarily depictive of anything in particular, but more or less as a warm-up. And it's me getting either frustrations out or thoughts or just an initial concept. And sometimes I'll do it with real heavy graphite pencils that are about this thick, or I'll have other graphite chunks, or I'll use a paintbrush and mark on there in the dirty paint water that I've got saved. And I move through a painting just to express my emotions, and it's very emotionally based. Most of my work is. And maybe it comes from a dark space that I've got going on. Emotions and what's gone on in the day throughout the week. This took me a few weeks to do, towards the end of December into January of the next year, which was 2022. And it really, to me, fitting into, in the beginning, the tumultuous or violent aspects of how, like, the earth began is how it kind of feels to me. And very dark and powerful, high contrast colors. And I'm not working necessarily from the image after this point, once I destroyed the whole painting, because I had people strewn throughout this. And I've got one person actually kind of right here, and I've got structures, and that's the only thing that I had left over from the original work. But I found in being comfortable with being able to destroy what you've already created is a sense of control. And being able to express yourself, which I think most of us do as artists, is important, and it leaves a vulnerable impression for yourself and for the people that are able to connect with it. So anyways, this is just very much my style and who I am as a person, that expresses my feelings. So that's what I have.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. The artist will be around for a few minutes.